any point, if any of you have any question, feel free to ask me. Feel free to stop me, or you can ask me. Okay, let me start it with the market report. I don't know how many of you actually look at the report at a monthly basis. I do, because I find it's very informative, especially when it comes to time to discuss the general market with your client. Because when you take your client for buy or sell, normally the first question they ask you guys will be, is this a good time to buy or sell? What do you think about the market? So what I will do is I will give them some information about the market. At the meantime, which I think is more convincing and more important, is we show them the data. Those are not the data made up by us. Those are actually the data from the TRIP, Toronto Regional Real Estate Board. So it's official data. It's very authentic. What I look at on this data, which I find is very informative, of course, number one is we look at the number of volumes that's being sold. So this is June's data. So those data, it shows you in 416, which is the Toronto area, 905, which is the York region. This is the sales volume. So as we expected, in June, the sales volume has declined by 40%. For both the detached homes and the condo in general. So that's the sold volume declined by 40%. It's not very clear. If any of you want to move forward, then feel free. And then another trend is the price. So we can see in this area and this area, 417 Toronto and the York region, the price shows a slightly increase from last year, but still, instead of double-digit increase, most of the price has declined to single-digit increase. For example, detached home is only 2% higher compared to last year's price. But we know even the inflation is 7% compared to last year. So in other words, the detached home price just increased a little bit below the inflation rate. And the semi-detached house increased a little bit more, and condo departments. So the condo apartment actually is the one with the most increase, which is about 10% from last year. So as we can see, the bigger volume, the less percentage it has increased in terms of the pricing compared to last year. So this is one information I look at here. So it does tell us the trend. And I will show you guys some other market chart, which I think is also very important. So another chart which I always look at, inflation rate, and the semi-detached house increased a little bit more, and condo departments. So the condo apartment actually is the one with the most increase, which is about 10% from last year. So as we can see, the bigger volume, the less percentage it has increased in terms of the pricing compared to last year. So this is one information I look at here. So it does tell us the trend. And I will show you guys some other market chart, which I think is also very important. So another chart which I always look at. So this also tells us it combined all the transactions, including condo, house, detached, semi, every transactions in the GTA area. So this shows the total number of volume. So this year, in June this year, only 6,500 transactions compared to June last year, 11,000 transactions. So the volume has gone down by 41%. And seasonal adjusted means compared to May this year, compared to May, the transaction volume has gone down by 4.7%. This is actually reasonable because summertime is always a little bit less busy. So seasonal adjusted number is what we expected. Seasonal selling price, average selling price compared to last year, it has gone up by 5%, which is about the inflation, actually a little bit below the inflation because the inflation shows about 7% this year. So in other words, the selling price has gone down almost by 30% compared to peak time this year. Seasonal adjusted means the June price compared to May, it has decreased by 3%. This is important because when it comes to buy or sell, very common questions our client always ask us is, what do we think about the price? Do you think it will keep dropping, or do you think it will increase, right? From this data, it does show the housing price still shows a sign of weakening in terms of price and the sold volume. And I think everyone has read the news from yesterday. The Bank of Canada just increased the rate by 1%. So this will further decline people's buying power. So in other words, we do expect the sales volume to continue to stay low. How about the price? Everyone asked me if the price will continue to drop. That I think it might be drop a little bit, but we don't expect too much of drop for a couple reasons. So the reason I don't think the price will decline too much is because of the supplies. So this is another indication. If we see the sold volume is a demand, the number of the new listing is our supply. So as we can see, the total volume of listing is similar to last year. So in June, in other words, in June we have 16,000 resale homes that's on the market for sale, and compared to last year, it's about the same number of months that's on sale. So in other words, even though there are less people buying, but there are not that many new listings on the market. I don't know if you guys feel the same. You're trying to take your client out for showings, but there are not that many homes available for us to select. Sell to new listing ratio. So that means how quick, how many units are being sold. So in other words, last year in June, 68% of inventory will be sold in the current month. But this year, only 40% of the listings are getting sold. In other words, not every listings can sell, only 40% of the listings are getting sold. This actually is a very good time for us to demonstrate our value to our client, because if every listing can sell, the seller does not need to pick the agent. Only in tough market, the seller needs to be more selective about who they choose, and it's also a great time for us to tell our client that we are not discounted broker. We don't charge no commissions, because there are a lot of extra works we need to provide to our client to make us sell happily. So all those data, depending on how you use it, yes, it shows a sign of weakening, but at the other time, it's a wonderful tool to show our client this is the best time for us to demonstrate our value to you as your agent. And also this is why we have to charge you a reasonable amount of commission. I don't know how much everyone charges in terms of listing commission, but we never charge 1%. We always charge more than that. And we always explain to our clients, now only the best realtors can make a sale happen. Okay, so this is how we talk to our clients. And another thing is the properties days on the market year over year. It shows 41% longer, but don't be scared about this data. If we look at the number, right, in June it takes about 17 days to sell properties last year, and this year it takes 24 days to sell properties. What does this mean? 24 days is still a pretty quick within a month. So in other words, that's what we can tell our seller client as well. If you have a reasonable expectation, right, and you have the right realtor, which they will have because they choose us, and we do a proper job in terms of marketing, how many days the house should be sold? 24 days. And if the house takes longer than 24 days to sell, what does that mean? Normally it's an indication of overpriced. So we have to tell our client what are the market trends in your neighborhood. Your property is overpriced. We are not getting sold in 24 hours. We are not getting enough showings. It's not about the market. Yes, the market is slow, but it's more about we have to be reasonable of what we need to sell in this market, right? Okay, the listing days on the market is also increased a little bit as well. So let's continue to go. I'm gonna skip this. So you can see this is a home index price from 2012 up to in the past 10 years. So Canadian real estate market do see up and downs. In 2017 the market was flattened, and also in 2017 the market price has gone down a little bit, and then the price has gone up, and in 2022 the price has gone up, and then now it's a little bit flattened. But the general trends, it has up and down. In general trends in the past 10 years, as we can see, the price has what? The price has more than doubled, right? It was slightly below 500K, and now it's over $1 million. So that in other words, in the last 10 years, the average increase in Toronto housing price has gone up by more than 10%. This is another thing you can show to our buyers. Don't worry about the small fluctuations, okay? If you can buy and hold it over the years, you are guaranteed to make money. Because in Toronto, the market has never disappointed us. So if you do have a buyer that's hesitant, I think, oh, should we buy now or should we wait? So you can tell them, the market may fluctuate a little bit, but as long as we can hold for longer term, you're gonna make money. So short-term fluctuation is not critical in terms of making your decision. As long as you have the down payment right now, you are qualified for mortgage, you should go ahead with the market. So this is another wonderful slide you can present to your client. So all those data, right, depending on what type of client you are talking with, if it's a seller client, if it's a buyer client, you can show them different slides and then you can give them a different approach. Okay, so this is a commercial which I'm gonna skip because I think most people here are not practicing commercial anyway. So I'm gonna move to the condo market. So the condo market, in other words, is performing better than housing markets because the condo pricing is still on, most of the condo pricing is under $1 million. In Toronto, you don't find anything freehold under $1 million right now. So condo department, the sales volume has gone down by 15%, which is much better than the housing market, which has decreased by 40%. And then the selling price has gone up by 22%, which I'm a little bit surprised to see this number gone up by 22%. I think in July, the condo price may have softened a little bit because I do have agents showing people house in condo right now. And what he told me is the pricing are falling. So, for example, same units back in February, May sold for this price. Now the sellers are willing to let it go for a little bit cheaper. I don't know if you guys find the same thing. So I think that 22% increase is a little bit positive in my opinion. I think the condo price is going down a little bit as well. So the total new listing is about the same as last year. Again, this is consistent. The supply did not increase that much, but that means we still have the same amount of sellers on the market. The problem is now a lot of the buyers are just waiting to get into the market. New listings, it has sell to new listing has slowed down a little bit, but 69% listings are still getting sold. This is still much better compared to 40% listing ratios for the freehold. So in other words, I think it's easier to make sales in condo right now compared to house. So when you go for a listing, right, if you have more condo clients, you can talk to them more because the condo, for some of my sellers, if they are selling homes, sometimes it's a little bit difficult to convince them the house price has gone down so much for them to accept. But for condos, pretty much if they are willing to accept a reasonable price, they are still getting sold. So it might be easier for us to convince our condo seller at this moment. And then this is the days on the market, which is also interesting. This shows the number, it takes average 12 days to sell a condo in Q1. This is Q1 data, so that's why it's quicker. So this data is a little bit outdated. Q1 data, okay? So and the rental market, as we all know, the rental market is crazy right now, regardless of which type. We put a listing for lease, we always get multiple offer because the supply has gone down, okay? And also, as a reason, the number of new listings has gone down as a result. So the rental price has gone up quite a bit this year. So I have a lot of agents told me they are actually being more aggressive on the rental market because that's how they can close a deal. Buy and sales has slowed down. And I don't know how many of you guys do new condos. And new condo, as I heard, has also slowed down quite a bit. A lot of companies that specialize in resale, in new condo now is switching to resale and the rental market because it was so hard to make it's much harder to make a deal in investment like new condo department right now. So this is a general trend of the property. How many of you guys practice in York region? Or in which area you guys practice, or everywhere? Everywhere?
York and Toronto.
So are you guys more in the resale, new condo, like which area? Or you guys do a mix of everything? Okay, so this is if you guys practice at different area, right? And if you wanna, if your client asks you about the information about that particular neighborhood, one thing I find is always helpful is you go here is a different location depending on where you guys the client house is located, and that will be the average sold price here. And then another question they always ask me, because I do a lot of listing, is how quick you can sell my house, right? So this here will show you on the other side here. This actually shows you the number of days that's expected to sell in that particular pocket. So this is a general expectation you can provide to your clients, which I find very helpful. Okay.